Welcome back to the show, everybody. We got a great one for you this morning. The major winds of change are coming to Bitcoin and the entire crypto space, but it gets bigger because I think it's also winds of change that are coming to the entire financial markets. We'll discuss it. Ray Dalio says there's big implications the bigger Bitcoin's price gets, and he holds some, by the way, too. We're going to hear him talk about that. Early seed investor to Ripple speaks to Congress about the importance for ordinary people to be able to have access to crypto. Goldman Sachs is eyeing a buy signal for Coinbase. We're going to cover it. And guess what? We got testimony from Gary Gensler testifying before the House Committee on Financial Services, and it's straight fire. Let's go ahead and roll that beautiful intro.
This is Digital Perspectives with Brad Kimes. Subscribe for new content notifications. Now, here's Brad Kimes. Come on in.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. You can follow me on Twitter at BackupBradleyAbove and everything that we're talking about here today. Make sure you follow us there because we're not always sharing everything from Twitter onto the videos because there is so much news. So make sure you follow us in both places. Okay, let's get started. 1.5 trillion plus for the cryptocurrency market cap collectively here. Really quickly, Bitcoin at 37,000, almost flat, and it's off by 18.66% on the 7-day. Ethereum $2,400 plus. Right now, it's up almost 6% on the 24-hour, off by 30% on the 7-day. Quickly, Cardano is 147. It is off by 30.58% on the 7-day. And we look down here at the number 7 spot, courtesy of the dereliction of duty by the SEC and intimidation tactics. We are at 91 cents currently right now. We saw a little over $1 overnight, and we are up 7% on a 24-hour, off by 45.48% on the 7-day. Let's go ahead and look at the range really quickly. And by the way, we will hear from the technical experts, the analysts who cover this market so closely and so well. We're going to hear from just a couple of them before we get out of here today about what they're saying to look forward to. And here we see we're ranging between 77 cents and $1.05. I sent out a screenshot at like $1 and a penny. And I just, I love LL Cool J from back in the day, don't call it a comeback because we've been here for years and we have. And you know what? If you've been in this space for a long time, you know what it's like to have the big losses and to remain strong in the market to get those huge gains. And I think they are coming now. That's not financial advice from me to anybody, but it's just how I personally feel. You know how I'm rolling. Here we go. It's Hall of Famer Michael on the dock today. He says, Beijing has doubled down on its efforts to rein in the country's cryptocurrency industry, targeting crypto mining activities for the first time and prompting many exchanges and miners to suspend mining related services. So there is big things happening over in China when it comes to Bitcoin mining. But let's keep going here because there's things happening on both sides of the world, right? So while the Bitcoin miners in China reel from the after effects of the country's latest crypto attack, miners on the other side of the planet are reportedly forming a new council to promote sustainable mining. That's right. North American miners are coming together. And this is really interesting because, Elon Musk had shot down Bitcoin for a minute there and said Tesla's no longer going to accept it for payment for their vehicles. And, let's not lose sight of the fact that Elon Musk is in the industry of using, renewable energy and things of that nature. Look what he's done with vehicles, right? And battery use and getting away from fossil fuels. So might it be that Elon Musk is about to introduce some kind of new mining operation that uses renewable or sustainable energy? Now, we'll keep an eye on that, but it is official. Bitcoin is officially a new asset class according to Goldman Sachs. That's right. More than $2 trillion asset under management, Goldman Sachs. And, they have said for many, many years, they're not going to get into crypto. They're not going to deal with crypto. They're not going to fool with this stuff. That's for others, right? We stay in the conventional markets. Well, they've recently announced this past year that they are going to be opening a cryptocurrency desk and they're going to offer it to their wealthiest clients first. Don't forget that narrative because that doesn't change. That's how that happens. So it is getting very, very real. And it gets even more real. We hear famous investor Ray Dalio here from Bridgewater, and he tells you exactly what's going on. And I remind you very quickly of the bullcrap story. If you don't remember it, if you haven't heard it, if you have, just bear with me for a second. So, there's a pheasant in the pasture with the bull, and he tells the bull, "I want to get to the top of that tree. I think it'd be such a beautiful view up there." The bull says, "Well, why don't you eat some of my dung, and the nutrients from the grasses that I eat will make you strong enough to one day you will fly up to the top of that tree." So he does it, and after a week or two, the pheasant is strong enough, and he flies to the top of that tree. Within minutes, the farmer comes out of the house. He sees a really fat pheasant in the top of that tree, and he shoots it and kills it and then eats it. The moral of the story is that Bitcoin is the pheasant. And the bigger you get, the more you find yourself in the crosshairs of the farmer, which is the market regulator and governments. And the reality is that bullcrap might get you to the top, but it won't keep you there. And that's really what we're talking about here. And I think this is why we're also seeing a major shift to get Bitcoin away from proof of work at this point. I said yesterday that Chris Larson, who really, is just, a pioneer, an innovator in this entire internet space from eProsper to Ripple. And the truth is that, his call to action for Bitcoin to leave proof of work and make its way to proof of stake is really, really hitting home. And when you think about the fact that we know that Goldman Sachs cites Ripple as the new global settlement system for the world from their own PDFs that we covered here over the weekend, and we're about to go into another video later today that you really are going to want to see, I think we understand that Chris Larson knows what's happening and knows that proof of work has to be, let's say, abandoned, but moved away from because of its energy usage. Listen to what Ray Dalio says here.
Bitcoin's greatest risk is its success. Because as it becomes more, right now, it's not such a big deal. And, fighting it is more of a big deal. And that's it, because it's not that big a deal. As it becomes a bigger deal and more of a threat, let's say people want to sell their bonds and they want to buy Bitcoin.
Is that not the pheasant getting higher and higher up in the tree? The more people want to dump U.S. Treasury bonds or any bond and take a position in something like Bitcoin. And I think that's great for Bitcoin, but it does put you in the crosshairs of market regulators and governments around the world. If they see your asset as a threat to their own bonds, well, you got the trials of Job ahead of you.
And they want to do that in a bigger way, like buying gold or something in a bigger way. And then there's more transaction. They lose control over that. And that's an existential risk. So, yes, that's connected. The more we create savings in it, the more you might say, I'd rather have Bitcoin than the bond. Personally, I'd rather have Bitcoin than a bond.
That's a huge statement coming from Ray Dalio right there. Listen.
And then the more that happens, then it goes into Bitcoin and it doesn't go into credit, and then they lose control of it. So yeah, that's a risk. I think
that's incredible right there. That is an incredible statement by Ray Dalio right there. No doubt about it. But what are they going to switch to? Because we've talked here about a huge carbon footprint tax, right? So a huge carbon tax being put on Bitcoin. Well, here's a piece here that kind of says, what is One River doing? Oh, that's right. The same place that Jay Clayton landed right after dropping a lawsuit on Ripple. And look at what they're trying to do here. They have filed for a carbon-neutral Bitcoin ETF that makes up for the emissions from mining the blockchain with the use of carbon credits. But as Michael Val 5 Links rightfully tells us, Aren't carbon credits just a fancy term for paying to pollute? This is why Michael Val-Five-Links is a Hall of Famer, because he's dead on the money. Now here, let's step to Congress here, because this is Andreessen Horowitz and Scott Kapoor here. So he speaks to Congress and says the SEC disadvantages ordinary folks from token investing. And it is true. And he believes they are missing out on what we believe is really important growth opportunity. And it's true. I believe it because that's why I started the channel. I mean, everybody's got to make up their own mind and their own decisions and do your own research, vet me, vet any information you get. But the truth is that this is the greatest financial paradigm shift in the history of mankind. Don't believe it. It's still true. That's what we're talking about here. And Andreessen Horowitz being an early seed investor in Ripple itself, Andreessen Horowitz is no joke anyway. They are a huge, huge investment company. Let's take a look here. Goldman Sachs analysts have sent out a buy signal for Coinbase's stock targeting $306 as a buy signal. Crypto exchanges like Coinbase experienced record trading volumes during last week's crypto crash. You have to remember, even when things are crashing, the exchanges are making a lot of money. Right? So here's the thing that really blows my mind. I remember when Coinbase was on Link2, and I was telling you guys about it when it was $31 or $32 a share. Yeah. How do you think those folks made out? Well, guess what? Uphold sold out. Guess what? Kraken's on the board. It ain't going to last long. You better get it. You better get it. You better get it if you're going to get it. Keep an eye out for Ripple too. May see that sometime this week. And look, there's other great stuff on here as well than just the exchanges that are available here and Ripple blockchain infrastructure company, right? We know that there is great stuff here. So automation anywhere is phenomenal. And then you got Carbon, which are doing like 3D printing parts, and they're making stuff for Lamborghini, for God's sakes. I mean, there's some great opportunities here when you get into private equity buying before the company IPOs. So make sure you check that out as well. And looking here, we see that Cynthia Loomis, who has been a huge advocate for Bitcoin and crypto, says she's primarily focused on working with the Federal Reserve, the Securities Exchange Commission, and others to ensure that any regulations on new kinds of banks and digital assets foster innovation instead of stifling it. Well, thank goodness, because between her, Darren Soto, Warren Davidson, and Tom Emmer, that might be about the list. I don't know. We need to get her and many others in Congress to hip up the rest of the crew, right? That's what we need to do. But now let's shift gears and go to Gary Gensler's testimony here. First of all, if you're not following Stephen W. Huber, I would be, because he's the one that tipped us off here that the testimony was out, and shout out to him. And shout out to Big Skinny, by the way, who was the one that gave me and sent me originally the document from Goldman Sachs that had Ripple cited as a global settlement system. I meant to shout him out yesterday, and he tried to keep all the stories and the storylines and the bullet points together, and sometimes you just mess it up, and I did. So thank you, Big Skinny. And here we see the testimony. Now, this entire thing should be read, but I'm not going to do it, so you can breathe a sigh of relief. But however, I do, before we get into this, want to remind you, what did we say? That the U.S. pipeline cyber attack was going to be a narrative about the infrastructure needing updating. It's antiquated, right? What did we say about the GameStop situation? That narrative speaks to market manipulation, and they're not going to address the institutional market manipulation. They blamed it on us, the retail investors and social media apps, and the fact that we could come together and do exactly what the greediest people of the world have been doing since there have been markets. Right? And then what's the other side of this? Cryptocurrency itself. Those are the 3 bullet points to the narrative of moving to a new system. And they're going to use Diem coin. That's right. The stable coin for Facebook, which has left Switzerland and now moving back to the United States at the same exact very time that the Federal Reserve is doing 5 different pilot tests for the digital dollar starting this summer. So you make of that what you will, but I've been speaking to those those narratives because they cover cryptocurrency, cybercrime, and market manipulation. And that all speaks to not just cryptos, but infrastructure, market infrastructure. What is Ripple? Ripple is a blockchain infrastructure company, is what Brad Garlinghouse has said for quite a while now. So I want to take you here to some points that Stephen Huber has said, and we'll get back to the actual SEC page here in 1 second. Stephen Huber reminds us Gary Gensler testimony on May 6th on clearance and settlement. Not that kind of settlement you think. The longer it takes for a trade to settle, the more risk our markets assume. The good news is we now have the technology to further shorten the settlement cycles. Really? Oh, do tell Gary Gensler, not only to the settlement cycle we had a century ago, but even to the same day settlement. And listen, this speaks to me about the market infrastructure, right? The plumbing, right? That everything runs on. The payment protocol. What has Glenn Hutchins told us? The values in the protocol, right? Yeah, not the token. The price of the token is a distraction and, in fact, uninformative, right? So this is what we're really talking about. And now Gary Gensler's talking about it. The market infrastructure, we could change to something that gives us same-day settlement. I'm just going to bring you down here, gamification and user experience. And again, it highlights in here the whole GameStop business, right? The payment to order flow, right? Payment for order flow, the equity market structure, right? All of these things are being addressed. Short selling and market transparency, social media, and how the Wall Street Bets crew got on there and unified together, right? So market plumbing, clearing, and settlement here. Does it highlight Dodd-Frank, which has been the same act that I point out, the Dodd-Frank Act, that could be used by the Financial Stability Oversight Council, the U.S. Treasury, to in fact step in and to deem things systemically important, like payment protocols, like the XRP ledger maybe, right? Or these private ledgers that are built off of the open source code of the XRP ledger, right? So we'll keep these things in mind as we move forward. I do want to show here when it talks about settlement time, it says here, the longer it takes for a trade to settle, the more risk our markets assume. The good news is throughout, though it will take a lot of work by many parties, we now have the technology to further shorten the settlement cycles, not only to the settlement cycle we had a century ago, but even the same day settlement, T0 or T evening. I believe shortening the standard settlement cycle could reduce cost and risk in our market. I've directed the SEC staff to put together a draft proposal for the Commission's review on this topic. He goes on to talk about system-wide risk and other things. So the reality here is where have you heard someone talk about the fact that the longer it takes for a trade to settle, the more risk our markets assume? Brad Garlinghouse, when he's talked about SWIFT and the settlement time that it takes days for SWIFT to do. I used to be a manufacturer of a product that I invented in China. And when I would have to send my money to get it to China, to get it to the manufacturer, I would have to use SWIFT to do that. And it would take 5, sometimes 7 days at the longest I've experienced. And then I'd have to pay a currency differential by the time the money actually got there. It was a nightmare. Is an absolute nightmare. And in the process, you have no idea where your money is. It's just 5 days later, you get a message from the manufacturer that the bank over there has contacted them and we got your money, but now you got to pay the differential in currency valuation. So, what he's really speaking to here is what Brad Garlinghouse has talked about how they solved that problem, because you don't have to do all of this same path and routing that SWIFT is doing, because SWIFT, by the way, is instant payment, instant messaging. It's not instant settlement. Hence, that's why they've partnered with R3, the core platform, XDC token, and XRP backend will eventually work to close that settlement time to near zero. That is going to stop a lot of market manipulation, because in fact, if you're doing trades, and it does talk about in here, by the way, as it goes through these things, it does bring up the DTCC in some of this as well. And if I could find it just really quickly, it would be amazing. Let me see it. Oh, the Depository Trust Clearing Corporation and other industry groups recently announced their intention to study these issues and collaborate on efforts to accelerate the transition time to T1 or below, right? So the real deal is that we know that the DTCC settles 1.6 quadrillion in derivatives every year without fail. What else do we know? They have Project Whitney and Project Ion, which we have covered extensively on this channel, which use distributed ledger technology to do so. The fact is if they can shorten the settlement time, then Robinhood can't sell that data to the larger investor to show what the retail investor is doing. So the larger investor can either close out a position and open a new one to either counter or to benefit from the information of the retail investor. Because if we're all settling near zero, then you don't have that information to manipulate the market. Now, do you? That's what we're talking about moving to. And that's why it's so very, very important. So shout out to Stephen Huber. You should follow him. To add to all of this, the Ratha Khanman brings in this piece of news from the Kuwait Times. I would be following Ratha Khanman, by the way. Ripple trading is mentioned, as a part of the Kuwaitis' Forza program, aligning with their desire to reinforce their leadership in digitalization. And all of this goes to the G20 agenda that we've talked about for the last couple of years about moving the entire planet to a new digitized, tokenized system. And here it says in here, Al Omar added that Forza program includes advanced training programs, workshops, and field visits to the largest and most prominent global technology firms such as Microsoft, Google, Apple, Ripple, among others. They got Ripple right up there with Microsoft, Google, and Apple. How about that? Isn't that interesting? Yeah. What do you make of that? And that just came out, by the way. So before we get out of here, let's go ahead and take a look at this. And this is the price you've been wanting to know about here, the price targets for XRP. Where are we? We know Crypto Wizard says XRP, BTC, XRP both closed bullish. XRP, BTC retested a support target, and XRP tested its pre-SEC top as a new support. He says, I'm expecting more and more bullish moves from XRP. The bullish chart structure is still solid in the higher time frame. So let's take a look at what Dark Defender says here. XRP hits $1 with a 6 hours delay than our expectations. We forgive you, Dark Defender. You've been absolutely incredible. I don't think we need to hold you to the hourly. You know, that's the reason patience is important, and that's exactly right. Let's have a look at the support and resistance levels at our chart. Currently at 116 and above is important. I wish you a great day, like a coffee. Thank you so much, and cheers to you, Dark Defender and Crypto Wizard. Let's take a look at this before we get out of here. But this is the road to $13.33, ladies and gentlemen. And this is the road we've been on right here, right? But now we're coming back. We see supports at 92.78 and 65 cents have held, and we are now up just underneath $1. We're over $1 overnight. We're looking at short terms at 116. Then we need to be above 126, ranging as well, by the way, and then 142 to finally make our way to some new all-time highs. That's what we're talking about, and that's going to do it for me. Make sure you check out all the links in the description box and the comment section. By the way, jonesing for a treat. This is healthy, natural treats for your best friend. That's right, they're dog treats, and they are amazing, and people love them. I don't mind telling you that. Make sure you check this out. If you're a dog lover and you have your favorite best friend with you, make sure you get them jonesing for a treat, because they are really incredible, healthy, natural treats. There's a discount code. It's DP2021. DP2021. I'll catch all of you on the next one.